I'll call this meeting to order. Could we have roll call, please?
Yes, certainly. Chair Porter.
Here.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Commissioner Huber.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Kurth.
Here.
Thank you.
We'll start this meeting with the invocation and pledge of allegiance led by Commissioners Smith and Wilson.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for another day and for the opportunity to come together and try to make decisions that are in the best interest of our city. Guide us with your wisdom, hold us with your justice, comfort us with your mercy, and protect us with your power. We pray for these things in your most holy name.
Approval of minutes. The first one is the joint meeting of March 12th, 2014.
I'll move for the approval of the joint meeting of March 12th.
Second. Not yet.
And then we have the minutes of the regular Planning Commission meeting of April 9th, 2014.
And I'll also move for the regular meeting of the Plan Commission of April 9th.
Second.
Our first item, first and only item, is a public hearing with the City of Victorville as the applicant. Could we,
I need to recuse myself as I have a financial interest in a property within 300 feet.
thank you. Could we have a staff report on this item?
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. This is case number PLN 14-1. It is the proposed revocation of conditional use permit CUP 92-049M and business license BSL 05-07398. These allow for the on-site sale of alcoholic beverages in conjunction with Shadowview Corporation, which does business as Teaser Sports Bar and Grill. They do this at 14269 7th Street. And just to mention that the applicants are both the City of Victorville and the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. If the Planning Commission remembers, we did a similar process in 2013, and that was brought on because of concerns by the Sheriff's Department, which the Commission considered significant enough to bring this process before you. As you know, the process was appealed to the City Council, and then a court process taken where the owner of the nightclub or the Shadowview Corporation took that to the court. The judge ruled in favor of them and that the city needed to provide more substantial evidence. Therefore, tonight we have added, in addition to the evidence that was submitted previously to you, we have added the years from 2001 to 2005, which outline and display several different actions that the city took, the city manager took, in revoking the business license previously. In 2001, there were a number of, and the information that goes with this would be in Exhibit H. That evidence starts on page 223 and goes on from there. A process that took place that took evidence from 1998 to 2001, which included a number of different health and safety threats to the people who would go to the club, to people in the vicinity, to just the general public as a whole. Part of the evidence in that packet is someone inside the club being shot and paralyzed in 2001. So there were significant events happening to cause the revocation of the business license at that time. The result of that revocation was an operations agreement whereby the city allowed them to continue operating but established a set of more strict rules than they previously had. They were unable to follow those rules such as not allowing those under 21 continuing to serve patrons who are obviously intoxicated, and other violations like that outlined in those reports as well. That revocation, then that business license was revoked at the time, and the result of that, and that I believe also had a court process included with it, that ended up with another operations agreement whereby the owner of the club, George Thanos, was to turn over, and all of the employees were to turn over the full operations of the club to an outside management company. That outside management company was supposed to be Executive Management Group. That did not occur, and that and the process, the evidence is in there that that was not followed as well. In 2005, a new conditional use permit was applied for and was granted, and that's the modification that we're referring to tonight. There's a number of different violations and provisions discussed in the staff report regarding the conditional use permit and the business license, the different sections that they have violated in terms of information provided on the business license, not provided on the business license. The conditional use permit, that the section we're looking at is that the business is run or conducted as a nuisance, and a nuisance is a thing, act, occupation, or use of property which does any of the following: annoys, injures, or endangers the safety, health, comfort, or repose of the public, in any way renders the public insecure in life or in use of property. Again, the sheriffs will come up and speak next, and they have all of the calls for service, over 900 of them from the years from 2008 to 2013, which detail a wide variety of calls that have been made to them over the years. And in addition, I guess from there, if you have any questions, I would like to hold off from there and then just see if you have any questions for me specifically. Otherwise, we'll have Deputy Brian Waterhouse come up and give you the sheriff's aspect of it.
Fine.
Okay.
Good evening. I'm Deputy Waterhouse with the Victorville Sheriff's Department, or Police Department. I've been with the department since 2005 and currently assigned to the alcohol compliance team. My partner is also here. It's Deputy Hogan. He, at the time, assisted with the investigation into the location of 14269 7th Street, which was Teasers. I'm pretty sure that you guys have a copy of the report, the original report. All of our information was basically, as far as the investigation, the part that we did, was based on the months from 5/1 of 2008 to 5/1 of 2013. In that investigation, we showed that there was over 900 calls for service, and those were ranging from different types of calls where people were calling us and reporting something, all the way to us going there to do bar checks or area checks, and usually those were done in the early morning hours, usually like 1:30 or so was an average. And the reason for those was to try to prevent anything from happening in the parking lot. These types of calls range, we've had homicides there, assault with a deadly weapon, we've even had shootings there. And that's not to mention batteries and other crimes. We conducted ABC inspections there. In fact, we're kind of going to bounce back and forth, but my partner Hogan actually is going to cover the ABC inspection portion that we did. I'll go ahead and let you cover that.
Hi, good evening. I'm Deputy Hogan. As far as the ABC inspections go, the copies of the inspections are in the books for you guys. Something that we just want to mention is that it was no surprise. We told them we were going to, with the exception to the first one, which I did try to call him, but none of the phone numbers were working, and to try to set up an inspection there. He knew that we would be there 30 days after that to do a follow-up inspection. We showed up 31 days and noted similar violations to the ABC license as far as the conditions go on the ABC license, and they're documented in your report. Along with that, I took photographs, which are also in the report, to substantiate all the information that we saw there.
Thank you very much.
The sheer amount of calls that we had at the location had a direct impact on our station. It's a drain of the resources. There were evenings where the whole shift and units from other cities are having to roll into that parking lot because of calls for service or a certain call that we have there. Meanwhile, the rest of the city is not being patrolled. No other calls are being handled during this time. The business also had an impact on other businesses. We spoke to the manager, I don't recall his name, sorry? Nandika. He was the night manager for Denny's. There came a point in time where he would lock his doors to his business at night just before teasers would close, because he knew on many occasions they had problems that rolled over when they left there and came over there. Also spoke to the manager, Jose, from Richie's Diner. He used to be open all night, but because of problems just stopped, closed his doors at night, and pretty much had daytime hours only.
Can I interrupt you for a minute?
Sure.
I would like to point out that a number of these articles are also provided to you. I should mention that that was some of the additional information we did provide, was a number of newspaper articles throughout the years that detail a lot of these issues that have been occurring there because of the teasers and because of previous clubs, Rocks Club and Tremors and Teasers.
As long as we're in an interruption, Deputy, my name is Charles Green. I'm the Assistant City Attorney. And you stated that the manager of Richie's, I believe you said, no longer remained open all night because of problems. Could you be more specific as the kind of problems that he was encountering?
Well, he spoke one time of hearing gunshots. He also spoke of the once that teasers closed, the clientele, a lot of the clientele would go over to Denny's and or his business, but he'd start having problems in his parking lot. And on one occasion, he spoke about hearing gunfire, and he just decided, well, at first, he said that he was going to hire security for his own parking lot. But when he looked into it, it was just not cost effective for his business. So he decided to close the business and just remain open during regular daytime hours, if you will.
And when you spoke to him, did he indicate that, in fact, the people that seemed to be causing the problems in his parking lot, he believed or observed coming from teasers?
Yes. Both Nandika and the manager from Richie's explained that to me. Nandika stated that he would base what he was going to do simply by walking out his front doors at between 1 and 1:30 in the morning and look across the street at the parking lot, and then he made his decision on whether or not he was going to lock the doors or not.
And
But he actually had problems with keeping employees on the night shift, too. They didn't feel safe. They didn't want to be on the night shift, so he was having problems with his employees, trying to keep people working the night shift.
I see. So if he observed unruly behavior or gunshots or riotous behavior or other kinds of behavior that concerned him across the street, then he would make a decision on closing based on that?
Yes and no. Nandika's words were he would look across, and if there was a lot of clientele there, then he was going to lock his doors.
Okay.
Because usually on the nights where they were really busy, he'd end up having problems in his parking lot.
And did they both speak of problems in their parking lots, or did they also address parkings inside the restaurants?
Nandika spoke about problems he would have inside his business, and that
He was the Denny's manager?
Denny's manager, yes.
Did he specify what kind of problems those were?
There was overly intoxicated customers. Many times they would eat and not pay. He stated that he had a couple of times went into the restroom and found people in there having sex. And then not to mention the fights in his parking lot and even shootings.
Thank you.
Can you, if you
I-
got more?
Do you remember where you
I
were?
kind of
I don't. The main points that we had was the draining of resources, law enforcement resources to the city, the safety. To be honest, when I first got down here on patrol, if you had a call in that parking lot, and I'm speaking of myself, I hated to roll in there by myself because I just felt the potential of something bad happening was going to happen, you know. And that's why it got to the point where on any calls there, the whole shift is rolling to it. So when I say draining resources, that means no other citizens in the city of Victorville are getting their calls answered. Going back, Nandika even stated that on a couple occasions there was a fight at closing time at Teasers. He said at the same time something would happen at his business, and he basically knew that law enforcement was going to make it over there because they were still trying to secure the area and handle the call at the business, at the Teasers business.
I'm going to interrupt you again. Was the reason that you were concerned about going to the site alone because you considered it dangerous?
So, yeah, absolutely.
I see. And the reason the whole shift role was in order to protect the peace officers from undue risk?
It was totally an officer safety issue.
Thank you.
Totally. Oh, I'm just going back. Yeah, our main concerns basically was the amount and types of calls for service, the draining of the law enforcement resources, the impact that it had on the other surrounding businesses, and some of the serious type crimes that they had there. It's a hazard. Beyond some of the other issues that we had with the ABC inspections where things weren't being corrected, it was basically a nuisance to the city.
Al?
Yes.
Ms. Chair,
Thank-
if I may go ahead and interrupt us for a moment. When you were conducting, you mentioned the over 900 calls for service to the one business in a period of 5 years. Is that normal for this kind of business, or are there other kinds of businesses that have those kinds of calls for service, that the quantity and the kinds of service?
No, that's extremely high. We did some comparisons. I believe you have the numbers, but like Johnny Fingers, which is only a block away, and also a 848 type license. I believe they were in the 40s.
Why don't you tell us what that kind of license is, because I don't know for certain.
A 47 is a bona fide eating establishment. Basically, it's a place that sells food as their primary function, but they also sell alcohol.
So these are ABC designations.
Yes, yes, they are. They're a type of license that ABC issues.
Okay. Please continue.
48s are 21 and over only, and they don't necessarily have to have food. Some do have food, but it's not a primary responsibility to have any food at all.
And when you said Teasers had approximately 900 calls for service, and Johnny Fingers, is it a similar establishment to Teasers? Is it something comparable?
It's a similar in respect as to its license and even its size. Yeah, and location. I mean, it's just a block away.
And I may have missed it. And how many calls for service in the same 5-year period? I may have missed that.
I want to say it was in the 40s.
Let the record show that the deputy is examining his records to determine.
It was
exactly.
67, and that was from the exact same time period, 5/1 of 08 to 5/1 of 2013.
Did you ever have occasions to make calls, handle calls to that second facility? What was the name of it?
Johnny Fingers.
Johnny Fingers?
I do not recall ever during my time on patrol ever handling a call there.
And when there was a call there, was it a shift turnout, as with the case with Teasers?
I don't recall any of them. I didn't, in the research that I did for the calls for service, I didn't see any that were like that.
Okay, thank you.
I really have a concern that you didn't bring this before us. You know, this started in 2008 to 235 years. Why you didn't bring some of these problems before us? Because the manpower that was wasted outside of doing Victorville's job, which you're supposed to do, it's just mind-boggling of all these reports that we had, calls you had.
My answer to that is prior, Chris Borchert spoke about the prior times. I think he said going back to 2002. But basically, many of those, from the time period of 2002 up until when we actually started this program last year, you had the city was acting on their side, the police department was acting on their side, ABC was acting on their side. What happened last year was the new police chief, Sam Lucia, when he came to the city, he immediately started looking at these types of businesses that were excessive in calls. Where he came from, they had a ACT team, an alcohol compliance team. So he immediately started the team, and that's when Deputy Hogan and myself started working it. Pretty much from that time on, we were working with ABC, with the city, and to be honest with you, I've been doing law enforcement 24 years, and I didn't realize that I could come to the, that we could come as a law enforcement agency to the Planning Commission and talk. So to answer your question, our knowledge wasn't with this type of program and working with the city this closely. Because of our present chief, that's how it's become, though. That's where we're at now.
Thank you.
Wasn't that when you discovered the conditional use permit and how that could be revoked?
Absolutely. And a lot of that had to do with Detective Ron Wright now. He was in Rancho when they started the alcohol compliance team there. He was actually brought to the city of Victorville on a temporary assignment and basically trained Deputy Hogan and I. And he was pretty much the forefront of getting us to work hand in hand, with the city, with ABC.
I'm looking at your declaration that you filed in this matter, Deputy, and I note that you indicate here that, speaking of those Type 48 licenses that you referenced earlier, that there are 8 such licensees in the city for the same 5-year period that you examined teasers for. And so that would mean they were all businesses where it was 21 and older, where the primary business was the dispensation of alcohol, perhaps some food. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And in the declaration, you indicate that the other 8 businesses cumulatively show a total of 386 calls for service during the same 5-year period as teasers, which was an average of 48.2 calls for service per business, compared with teasers' 931 calls for service during that same period. And I also wanted to note, because I think this bears on the comparison that you're making, that that you made the comparison with Johnny Fingers, because not only is it close in size, close in proximity to teasers, it has hours of operation which are 3 times longer than that teasers has.
Yes.
And yet it had a small portion of the number of calls that teasers had, even though it's a similar establishment providing the same general kinds of services, and had a mere fraction of the number of calls. Is that a fair statement of your?
Yes, that would be correct.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions from the planning commission?
Deputy Waterhouse?
Yes.
Approximately a year and a half ago, I was traveling down 7th Street in front of Teasers between probably 1 and 1:30 in the morning, and I saw at least 6 or 8 deputy patrol cars parked on 7th Street in front of that business, Teasers, with the lights on. I was told by someone with the sheriff's department, when I questioned that later on, they said that that was a routine activity where the sheriff's department would use those resources to sit there to deter activities, crowd control, things like that on the weekends. Was that a standard process?
That's an accurate statement, yes. Basically, the watch commanders would, on many occasions, send you a message via your MDC stating that if you had nothing pressing at that moment, just to respond over there, just till they could get the patrons off the property and on their way. A lot of the problems occurred between midnight and 2:30 in the morning at the location. But that was they would park on 7th. The reason they would park on 7th, there was no room to park in the parking lot, and we had to allow avenues for people to leave. So they would turn their lights on, park on 7th until everything was cleared out.
I'm sorry, I thought I was done with you, but I did have one other issue, which is I noted in your declaration also that in your comparison between Teasers and Johnny Fingers, that the calls for service at Johnny Fingers did not involve any shootings, murders, rapes, strong-armed robberies, or carjackings. And that is by comparison, as I understand your declaration, with Teasers, which had experienced all of those calls for service of that serious nature.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you very much, Deputy Waterhouse. Are we ready for Deputy Snyder? Chris?
Actually, I believe you can hear from any one of the other people who have a declaration provided for you. I guess the next could be George Duran, representing our code enforcement department. You were given his packet, and I don't know if that was an updated one or the first one in the packet, but in other words, in the additional information packet.
Good evening, Planning Commissioners. My name is George Duran. I'm the Code Enforcement Manager for the City of Victorville. In my position, I've been the Code Enforcement Manager for 8 years and held a Code Enforcement Position Officer position for the last 10 years. In regards to this location, Code Enforcement has received extensive complaints from this location. We've documented complaints since 2004, stemming from primarily property maintenance and nuisance issues encountered at this establishment. If I will, I'll kind of follow my declaration as well. Primarily, our code enforcement division were responding to property maintenance and substandard conditions that were occurring within the unit. These conditions consisted of mold, just recently, but initially consisted of activities that were not licensed. Initially, approximately in several years ago, I believe, it's in my declaration, the business was operating in a part of their business that was not licensed. It was a taco stand. That was addressed to the owner, and they quickly abated that, and the enforcement case was closed. After that, we continued to receive complaints forwarded by the fire department at one point when the business was going through a transition in name. It went from, they proposed to change their name from the business called Halos, or I believe, to a business called Daisy Dukes. That came about by our attention by the fire department after they observed that there was a sign change. We took action with the business and provided them notice that they needed a new business license, because that required a new certificate of occupancy, business license, and so forth. The business owner eventually came in and talked to me directly, and I informed him of the requirements because of the business change, and they proceeded to not proceed with the business, with the Daisy Dukes name change, and keep the current name as Teasers. As we continued to receive more calls, we were solicited by the Sheriff's Department, the Alcohol Beverage Control, and eventually the Fire Department on various times. Our code enforcement officers, Officer Reynolds, I believe is here as well, conducted many of these investigations and inspections with these two agencies. And in his findings, he found various conditions that were concerning. One primarily was the decay inside the unit. Particularly one was related to a WeTip call or report that we received. WeTip is a nonprofit organization that receives anonymous calls from patrons or people that visit this establishment or anywhere in the city and report illicit activity or crimes. In this WeTip, what it alleged was that the business was allowing females, essentially, to become so intoxicated, and the security guards were not allowing people to photograph these females. In addition to the WeTip, the WeTip claim that the restroom was significantly decayed, the women's restroom, and full of graffiti, where the interior ceiling was so decayed that it was falling. Officer Reynolds actually ended up confirming some of those allegations, particularly the physical ones with respect to the restroom, the women's restroom. And those issues were addressed by way of a letter that was sent to the property owner, to the business owner, listing various conditions, if I may. Some of the conditions consisted of fire hazards such as temporary electrical cords being used to power some of the equipment inside the unit, whether it was lighting, nightclub lighting, or other types of apparatus inside. The decay inside the women's restroom was addressed. There was also, in the exterior of the establishment, there was a lack of maintenance. The establishment contained a significant amount of trash throughout at the rear of the unit, particularly where the alley between the two parcels. The officer also addressed the significant amount of graffiti and unmaintained signs that were throughout this establishment, primarily used to provide information to patrons to park and so forth. All those signs were unmaintained and full of graffiti. The officer also addressed the exterior lighting was inoperative and unmaintained. There was exposed wires throughout. The officer also addressed the lack of maintenance to the parking lot. It was significantly decayed and faded and required maintenance. There was a significant amount of alcohol bottles also found throughout, which was also addressed to the manager, to the owner, I should say. Approximately in December 2013, we were called to a water damage call by the fire department. What occurred here was a sprinkler pipe had ruptured, and that caused a response for the fire department to set off an alarm. We responded with a building inspector as well, and at the time, what we found was a significant amount of mold. As soon as we entered, we determined there was a significant amount of mildew and mold. As I entered, I observed an area at the rear of the kitchen that was completely full of mold. There's in my declaration, I'm sure there's a picture of this. So significant that the unit required we determined that it required immediate inspection to determine if the entire unit was full of mold. The reason for that was because this particular room had a white ceiling. The entire white ceiling was now covered with black mold. The rest of the facility smelled like mold, but because it was very dark and full of colors that were used likely at night to provide an ambience inside the unit, we determined that the unit was likely full of mold. We made that further determination because throughout the unit, aside from this particular kitchen area, there was a lot of plastic bags placed on the ceiling to cover and address likely prior leaks. These bags were clearly over areas that patrons would have been there, and therefore we deemed that there was likely mold throughout because the smell was consistent throughout. That was addressed through a letter that was sent also to the property owner and to the business owner. That required some compliance. We asked that a mold assessment be conducted and repaired under permit. The property owner responded and agreed to provide that. It was not timely, and to date, I don't think we've received a particular mold assessment yet, but there has been some work to remedy that. A reinspection was conducted several weeks after that to determine if some of those conditions stated in the letter, aside from the mold, the exterior conditions, the maintenance, exterior maintenance, interior maintenance, were repaired. None of the exterior maintenance issues were repaired. There was still a significant amount of trash throughout. There was still a significant amount of bottles, beer bottles that were laying adjacent throughout the landscape. The landscape was still unmaintained. It was completely decayed. There was initially, I forgot to mention, there was a buckled wall that apparently was hit by a vehicle, a patron vehicle that must have pulled forward. And that wall, although it wasn't a significant part of the structure, was clearly unmaintained and unaddressed, even though it was addressed constantly in prior notices. As we were inside conducting the reinspection, we found that there was a contractor inside addressing some of the mold issues. They did address some of the mold issues that we found initially to be a grave concern inside the kitchen. But we also found that they were doing that without a permit. So a stop work order was issued to the establishment, requiring them to cease all operations for rehab and submit plans. To date, those plans have been submitted, and a permit has not been approved yet because the plan is under review. That pretty much concludes my section.
Are there any questions?
Excuse me, Officer Duran, when you said that you had the ability to re-inspect the property, do you remember approximately what date that was? It was in, or actually, or your most recent re-inspection of the property. I should probably put it that way.
My most recent re-inspection was conducted on April 21st.
April 21st, so, and we're on the 30th now. And at that time, did you see any kinds of issues that were actually remedied from the prior inspections? And if so, could you just go through those real quickly?
Sure. The 21st, the inspection on the 21st, the establishment was not open, so the inspection consisted primarily of exterior violations that we were addressing. None of the exterior violations were addressed. The wall was still buckled. The landscape throughout, which is not much, was still unmaintained. There was still some trash laying throughout. The signs that were full of graffiti and severely damaged were still full of graffiti and severely damaged. Although not noted in here, I should add that at the time we were also some transients, looks like, outside drinking as well.
And were those violations that you noticed on that time, were they contained in the prior citation?
Yes.
Are they the subject of the plans that have been submitted for permit?
I'm sorry, you're asking me about a citation that was issued?
Yes. What I'm trying to find out is, on April the 21st of this year, you re-inspected and you found many existing problems. And I'm asking you, were some, all, or none of those problems previously existing problems that had already been made known to the owner through other means?
No, none of them were resolved.
I beg your pardon?
None of them were resolved. None of the violations.
Well, no, I know they weren't resolved, but had they been made known previously
Oh,
to
I'm
the
sorry.
owner?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And you indicated that the owner has filed plans and is seeking a permit for some of this remediation work?
Yes, the owner has hired a contractor to submit plans, and those plans are under review.
And have you seen the plans?
I have not.
And in your inspection on the 21st, did you observe conditions that were not covered by the prior citation that otherwise had either not been noticed or had more recently occurred?
No.
Are there administrative fees associated with these visits that you have, and is there a fine for not
Yes.
complying?
Yes. On the 21st, I should add, I apologize for that. The 21st, after we concluded that the exterior, at least the exterior violations were unresolved, a citation was issued. Citation number 1064 was issued to the property owner for the unresolved violations, which included graffiti, junk debris, and the hazardous structure. In addition to that, our inspections do carry a requirement to our ability, at least, to assess administrative cost recovery for the amount of inspections that we've conducted since then.
Mr. Duran, in your declaration, if I may, I'm going to paragraph 9 on page 3. You say that on April 23, 2014, the property owner's contractor submitted plans to the city's building division to address the unpermitted work located in the kitchen area and other repairs made throughout the establishment that were addressed by the stop work order issued on April 7, 2014. However, I'm continuing to quote, however, the additional foregoing violations and need for a new business license continue to exist, close quote. So I gather from that the plans and the work that's being undertaken by the contractor were addressing prior conditions, but did not necessarily address every condition that was present on the property. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And well, I think that's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Any further questions from the planning commissioner? Should we at this point give the a representative from Teasers the opportunity to cross-examine?
Well, we still have several different representatives who've provided declarations to the commission if you'd like to hear from them.
If I may, I think that it would be a better practice to first inquire if there's somebody here that officially represents the business, and then inquire if they would like to cross-examine. If they would, we can inquire whether they would rather do it all at the end, or. But you know, I want to give them fair opportunity to cross-examine and if they feel it's better to do that at the time the testimony is given, then I would ask the commission to consider that. May I make inquiry, Madam Chair? Is there an official representative of the Shadowview Corporation operating the business known as Teasers here? Could you come forward, please, ma'am? Thank you. Could you state your full name and your place of residence for the record?
It's Carol Shower, and it's at 21234 Paiute in Apple Valley.
Okay, thank you. And what is your position or interest in this business?
My interest is kind of a past, present, future interest, but tonight I was just here. Apparently Roger Diamond is the attorney for the property owner, and he couldn't be here tonight, so he gave us a list of things that he wanted to get on record, and I guess I was elected to speak and read the list, if I may.
Well, you certainly may. However, it would be appropriate to do that when the staff has finished presenting their case. What I asked you up for is that I didn't know if you wanted to undertake any cross-examination on behalf of the entity of any of the witnesses they come. I didn't think to ask about that before the first deputy came up, but if you wish to do that, then, well, first of all, I guess I need to know more expressly what your interest in the business is and whether you really are authorized to speak for the business.
Our interest is kind of a long story, but we were associated with the original Cocky Bowl. We own the name and the trademark.
The Cocky Bowl?
The Cocky Bowl, the original Cocky Bowl.
That was the business located out near 395 and Highway 18?
That was demolished, another piece of history gone. And our plans are to relocate or recreate. It won't be the same, and it will never be the same, but something similar where a family steakhouse, well, maybe not family, but, more of an adult steakhouse with, I should probably let him do the talking on that part. I was just supposed to read this.
Well, and you shall at the appropriate time. I'm really just trying to address one issue here, and I don't want to get off too far.
Yeah, well, the whole point is the Cocky Bowl will change everything.
All right.
It will bring a whole new different clientele, clean up.
Ma'am, I totally understand and appreciate that, But so far, you haven't said one thing that establishes that you have any present interest in the owner of that business, who is the party who would be authorized to speak here.
I'm on the corporation.
You're on the corporation?
Yes.
What does that mean?
I'm a member of the corporation, of Shadowview Corporation.
Mr. Green, maybe I can help. These two stood before the Planning Commission and the City Council
In 2005.
in 2005 and
Yes.
said that they were going to be operating the business. They are still listed on the business license as the operators of the business.
Oh, okay. Well, if they're listed on the business
We
license.
we
then-
really tried to turn it around then, but we
Okay,
just didn't get the
ma'am,
support.
ma'am,
So, but yeah.
this is not the time for argument. I just have one question of you.
Okay.
Do you desire to do cross-examination of the witnesses that the city is bringing up at the time?
Yes, I did, but I haven't heard everybody, so I do have a couple of questions. No, he doesn't want to hear that right now. I did have a couple of questions
Okay.
for them, but I haven't heard everybody yet, so.
Well, do you want to hear everybody first and then ask questions, or do you want to take them, each witness, and then when they're done, have the opportunity to ask that witness questions?
Well, I've never really done this before, so I'm not quite sure how it works. I'm sorry.
It's your choice. I'm giving you whatever you're more comfortable with.
I'll decide, can I decide
Why
later?
don't you confer with him, because he apparently wants to say something.
Yeah, can I just,
Please.
can I just decide that later? I'm going through my notes, I'm listening to everybody. There are a couple of questions I do have to ask just for clarification.
Okay. I think what you're saying is you'd rather wait till the end, and so that's what we'll do, is we'll
Okay.
finish all of the people that the city's going to present, and at the end of that, you can ask questions you'll have to tell us who the question's directed to, and we'll bring that person back up, and then you can cross-examine them if you wish.
Okay.
And when we're finished completing the staff's case here, what we will do is then you'll be provided with an opportunity to read the material that Mr. Diamond has asked you to read and so on. I do want to make one statement, however, which is in contrast to what you just said. I spoke to Mr. Diamond yesterday on the telephone, and Mr. Diamond, as I understand it, is not unable to come here. He has elected not to come here. He told me that he felt it was a waste of time, and so he would not be here. So, notwithstanding what you said, I believe he could have
Well, I
been
didn't
here.
speak with him directly.
Okay.
I got a faxed list from him, so.
Okay.
he
All
just
right.
said,
Well, anyway,
"Read this."
why don't you return to your seats? We'll
Okay.
finish with our witnesses, and then you can cross-examine.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Could I have just a couple of seconds for just a quick statement? I'll try to make it as short as possible.
State your name, please.
The things that are...
We need you to state your name.
I'm Mike Sauer, and I've known George about 30 years. I've been married to my wife about 40. We've been here in the high desert for 38. And 37 years of it was spent in the Cocky Bull. So we know clubs. We're used to being in them. We've done approximately about 6 up here. And God, I can remember when we first came up here, you could drive all the way from Bear Valley to Big Bear in an hour. Things have changed so fast, and the things that are moving up. Where my parents lived, they bought their house here 40 years ago. Graffiti and broken windows. You never saw that here. It was such a nice, tight, clean community with landmarks. Cocky Bull, we hate to, I know I keep, two more minutes.
I've been here since 1960, so I know what you're talking about, but it's not really relevant to what's here before the commission, and I'd be happy to visit Old Home Week with you later, but right now we need to run this meeting as efficiently as possible and stick to the issues before here. Are there any questions that you would have related to that?
The issue is that we've tried for a long time now. This is kind of some of the reason that a lot of this stuff didn't get done, because we hope to move forward faster with it. We were only a week maybe away from making an appointment with all you guys so we could explain what we wanted to do there. It's almost like taking a Sizzler complete, building it all nice, just like that. A Sizzler complete, and set it on the corner, but it has a little dance area for classic music, country music, because there is no country up here anywhere, and it used to be a big thing. The Cocky Bull was beautiful. 38 years there, I went from bouncing in the place to owning it. And when we finally got it, I mean, it was rat-infested. It was bad. And we brought that place back to life. We put spirit back in it. Not one fight the whole time that we were there. Never had to call the police. I've yet to see, totally a gangbanger try to come in a country bar. You just throw Patsy Cline on it and say,
I have on occasion been in your establishment, sir, and I know that what you're saying is largely true, but Cocky Bull is not the issue here tonight.
well, it is kind of because that's what we want to put there. This stuff that the sheriffs and everybody is talking about has yet to happen in the Cocky Bull. I believe that corner can be changed. It's just the people that come up expect to get in. It's been a place where you just try to survive in this economy. It's unbelievable. And when we did teasers, we were hoping for a lot of city support there with the sports bar. But a sports bar is just something that everybody goes to. And when you're not being able to pay your bills, when you can't keep a place up and you have to pay your employees, how can I make a buck at the door? Is what happened.
Again, let me refocus you here.
Okay.
What might eventually happen to this facility has great meaning to you because it represents opportunity and future for you.
Oh.
It has, at this moment, it doesn't have any meaning to this commission because what this commission is bound to consider is how it's been operated in the past, whether it constitutes a nuisance, and whether the business license and the conditional use permit should be revoked. So, with all due respect, and I applaud your enthusiasm to make it better.
Well, you only get one dream. We made it. We finally made it at the Cocky Bull, and we lost it overnight. And we don't know why.
Unless you have testimony that specifically deals with the problems which we're talking about here. I'm sorry. That's the future again. If and when that happens, then I'll be happy to come to the opening. But it's not relevant here. I hope that's the ultimate solution. Is that in fact a better use or?
Well, because of what happened in the past, does that mean that we can't change?
No, not
that
at
we
all.
can make this happen.
But you're asking us to take it on faith that it absolutely will happen, and that's not the case. We can't do that.
With the right before a nail gets driven or before anything gets done, we show you what's happening, the paperwork.
The only thing that we can do is consider evidence, and evidence is of what has transpired. You can't give evidence as to what might happen.
You are on the business license right now as operating teasers.
I know.
And you're trying to tell us the business is going to get better.
Well, I was absent. I shouldn't have been. I had to. I didn't have any choice. But if you look at the places that I have managed, the places that I've had,
you
and
stood here in
what the records
2005
are,
and promised the same
my
thing.
dad was a
that
West
you're
Covina cop for
promising
10
right now.
years. I don't believe in what's going on out there. I'm trying to keep a nice holy place where you could come and you can have a glass of wine, listen to some good country music, and eat a good steak at a good price. That's not fast food. The desert's running out of landmarks and beautiful places to go.
So, sir, is Mr. Borchardt's statement correct? You've been the manager of the facility at Teasers?
When we first opened it at Teasers as a sports bar.
And recently?
Now, we haven't been in there for probably since the opening of Teasers. We left, I think, 1 month after it opened.
Okay.
We were
well,
absent
I
there.
think what I'd ask you to do then is to rejoin your wife. At the end of the testimony that we're going to hear, she can ask any questions of the witnesses that have testified, and she can read into the record whatever it is that Mr. Diamond would like for her to read, and we'll proceed on that basis.
All right, I really appreciate your time. I hardly did ever get a chance to say anything. That's why I was kind of anxious.
And I have great hope that somebody, and maybe it'll be you, can really put a more productive use there, but that's not the issue before us tonight.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, we'd like to ask Tim Tate, our fire prevention officer from San Bernardino County Fire Department, to come up and discuss the fire safety issues with the use. And also, staff would like to point out that there are a number of issues pointed out from 2001 to 2005 from Joe Zuccaro regarding those similar fire safety issues, overcrowding being the main one.
My name's Timothy Tate. I am a fire prevention officer for San Bernardino County Fire Department. I've been assigned to Victorville City since July of 2012. I conducted a fire inspection on April 3rd, 2014. Some of the violations that I noted, there were multiple sprinkler heads in the facility that had been painted, were corroded, or were damaged in some way. I marked that as a correction that those sprinkler heads did need to be replaced. I also noted that the fire sprinkler system was due for a 5-year certification, and what that is, the California State Fire Marshal requires every 5 years a fire sprinkler system to be looked at by a licensed contractor, evaluated, and tested for deficiencies. All those deficiencies should be brought up and then corrected prior to being certified. So it was due for that. The fire alarm system also was due for its annual test, and I had no records of any previous annual tests at the facility that I could check to see when the last test was conducted. The fire alarm system was also in a trouble mode. However, it did not have an annunciator, so I was unable to find out what the trouble issue is. However, it was signaling in the trouble mode. On the north exit of the facility, there is a door that was locked with illegal lock latches. It was a slide lock with a bolt on it to prevent people from going in and out. That's also noted in the fire inspection as a correction. They had several exit signs that needed to be repaired, whether it be illumination for the light bulbs, the backup batteries, or the bulbs were actually broken from the system and were hanging by the wires. I found multiple extension cords located throughout the facility, plugging in several appliances and light fixtures. I found several exposed wires and painted electrical receptacles that I also noted as needing to be replaced. I also noted that there were several cover plates missing from the receptacles as well as light switches. And I also found compressed gas cylinders that were needed to be chained to something to prevent fall hazards. That was the fire inspection I conducted. I believe it was May of 2013, Fire Prevention Supervisor Joe Zaccaro also conducted a fire inspection. That was prior to mine. And Supervisor Zaccaro noted several issues. Fire lanes were not properly marked. Exterior electrical wires needed to be covered. FDC PIV needed service locks. Fire extinguishers were due for service. The hood and duct system needed to be serviced, and there were unsafe electrical cords throughout the facility. A hole in the ceiling also needed to be repaired. The circuit breaker panel needed to be covered. There was illegal door latching devices installed on some exits. Emergency exit lighting was inoperative, and an unsafe propane cylinder needed to be removed, and an exit door needed to be repaired or replaced. Railing at the exit stairs needed to be replaced as well. So some of the violations that were noted in Supervisor Zaccaro's inspection were also noted again in my inspection when I returned in April of this year.
Any questions?
Yes, I think I do have one. Officer Tate, I think in the last paragraph, well, first of all, you listed a number of things, such as, for example, extension cords plugging appliances in. I gather that all of that you listed was inconsistent with code requirements?
Correct, sir.
All right. In your last paragraph, second to last, number 7, you indicated, is therefore evident that fire code violations continue to exist on Teaser's premises, many, if not all of which, have existed despite notice and an opportunity to fix since as far back as May 2013. These violations present real and dangerous threats, including that of fire, and thereby endanger the public, including teasers, employees, and patrons, as well as surrounding neighbors, businesses, and all persons in the surrounding areas. Is that a fair statement of your view of the potential effects of these violations?
Yes, sir.
It would appear then that these are not what I would call in the nature of technical violations, but are violations which cause grave concern in terms of health and safety.
Correct, sir. We do have some what we would consider housekeeping corrections, and in some cases, extension cords would be a housekeeping, just maintaining, unplugging them, things like that. But the number and use throughout the facility, they are connected to each other, stringing on added lights, which creates a potential fire hazard. We also found things like the doors. They were provided with panic hardware. However, they also had illegal locks placed on the door as well, preventing people from being able to use them as an escape route. We also found that with the gates on the exterior and the patio area where it's fenced in, where they had locks that would prevent people from being able to travel out of the building. In the northeast corner of the building, they also had an exit door that was boarded over, that was also noted in Supervisor Zaccaro's inspection and was renoted in my inspection. They removed the exit door and put drywall over it and then put booths in front of it to prevent its use as a door.
All right.
Further questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, we'd like to have Christopher Fisher from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department come up. He's not here. About Marvin Wilkie.
I should note that my office was informed that Officer Fisher, I'm not sure if I have his title right, but the demands of his work prevented him from attending tonight. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Wilkie, Deputy Sheriff for San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department, currently assigned to the Victorville Station. I've been there for approximately a year and 4 months now, and I'll get right into my declaration and the incident. On March 16th, 2014, I was assigned uniform patrol in the city of Victorville. At approximately 01:55 hours, we received several calls of shots heard in the area of St. Andrews and Green Tree Boulevard, which is the back road to Teasers. When I arrived on scene, I saw a black vehicle running the stop sign on St. Andrews and Green Tree, and I believed it was a vehicle that may have been involved in the shooting. Pulled it over, and upon further investigation, it was found the subject was under the influence of alcohol, as was everybody else in the car, but not involved in the shooting. As I was conducting my investigation, my partner, Deputy Bebo, was down on St. Andrews Street, and he lit up his lights, and he began to look on the street and notified me on the radio that he had located 9mm shell casings. I called over the DUI car. We have a unit that strictly does DUIs, and he took over the investigation of my traffic stop. I then went over to Deputy Bebo to help him out with the investigation of the shell casings. We located approximately, I want to say 8 in the street, and then as I was walking, tracing back the shells, they were leading into the parking lot of Teasers, where we located a total of 16 from the Teasers parking lot heading out to St. Andrews, 16 9mm shell casings. I then made contact with the security officer who runs the Teasers, who works at the Teasers nightclub, and asked him, hey, was this involved? Have you heard anything? And he stated several patrons or customers, if you will, had came to him and stated there was a subject that was firing a gun into the air. He came from that Teasers nightclub. No calls of injuries or no calls of damaged property came out. Only about 3 to 4 calls of shots heard. So a report was taken and filed, but thank goodness there were no injuries or no property damage at that incident. But it was found that that shooting directly is a result of the customers at Teasers.
That was the conclusion that you reached after your investigation?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Oh, you want to go ahead? I just have one question, which is, did anybody from Teasers actually call the sheriff's department with respect to the alleged 16 shots fired?
No, not directly from Teasers. The people that called in were from the surrounding areas. There's like apartment complexes on the back of St. Andrews, and the people there called and called in and said, "We have shots. We're hearing shots being fired."
Could you describe for me, just briefly, Deputy, the physical layout? I know that Teasers fronts on 7th Street. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And the property line runs back to some kind of cement block fence or something like that?
Yes.
And on the other side of the fence, what is there to be found?
On the other side, there's the back to another business, if you will. I want to say there might be some schools for special needs. There's like an academy school there. That's what's located there. Then there's St. Andrews, and across from, on the other side of St. Andrews, those are apartment complexes. So very close to residential. So even if you shoot rounds into the air, they have to come down somewhere. So that's the layout. You have Teasers, the back, there's that wall, it jumps. Then there's another business, and there are those schools. I believe they're for special needs. I've been there a couple times. And then St. Andrews, you cross over, and there's all the apartments.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Any further questions from the planning commissioners? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, staff would like to conclude by pointing out on pages 15 through 23 are the findings related to revocation of the business license and the conditional use permit. We feel there's a significant amount of evidence to show that the business has been conducted in a manner contrary to the peace, health, safety, and welfare of the public, and that revocation of both the business license and the CUP is warranted.
And I need to inform the Commission that the law requires that you make these findings in order to if it should be your wish to grant the Sheriff's Department and the City's request for revocation, requires that you make certain findings, that you be able to make those findings. But further than that, it requires that each of those findings in your mind has to tie back to specific evidence that you've received in this hearing, either from oral testimony or from the many declarations and reports which you have before you. So I just wanted to make clear that the statutory duty here is to specifically examine the evidence and tie it to the findings that you make. I know that there have been 2 resolutions prepared, one granting the revocations sought by the city and the Sheriff's Department, and the other denying it. That was in order that there be no presumption as to what this Planning Commission would do. But the resolution, should you go this direction to grant the revocation, contains findings which are important, critical to the analysis that you have before you. Now, if the city is finished with its presentation, then it would be appropriate to let the applicant go next, unless the applicant would like for public speakers to go before.
speakers. We have two public speakers that wish to speak to this item.
All right, I guess we're going to call them first.
We have two public speakers, and then we'll call you back up. Mrs. Phillips, Charlotte Phillips.
My name is Charlotte Phillips, and I own the building that is next door to the Tasers. And
Sorry, ma'am, could you tell us which building?
Pardon?
Which side of Teasers?
well, let's see, it would be on the north side. It's been there a long time. I had one tenant that just moved this last year, a dentist that was with me for 28 years. I do keep my building in pretty good shape. When he moved out, another dentist moved right in. I had to accomplish about $1,600 worth of banging door things that had become obsolete during the time he was there. They all worked, but that's the new, what you do when you change tenants. I cannot imagine that this city would allow a nightclub to be operating so that they couldn't hit a banging door and get out in case of a fire. I just had another tenant move out that was on the other side, and he took all of his telephones disconnected, so immediately I didn't have a fire alarm. I had to go over there and sit all day last Thursday while the telephone company gave me a 5-hour window to come and put in 2 new lines so that I could operate the alarm, and I got a vacant building. I don't know what's going on that the guy that owns this building is getting away with. And how can you possibly give a license to somebody based on what you want him to do? He hasn't done anything that he's been cited for. I don't get it. You know, first of all, I don't even know the man, and I hate him. I keep up my landscaping. It looks like a pigsty over there most of the time. And I certainly wouldn't want to put anybody out of business, but to my way of thinking, he's put himself out of business. And he's there on a conditional use permit that was issued to, let's see, it must have been about 1979 when there were 2 restaurants there combined. You went from the night restaurant was the Wells Fargo, and the daytime the Bun Boy was open. As a matter of fact, the Wells Fargo opened at noon and served lunches. And there was a lot of food served in there, and that does seem to keep people from getting so inebriated that they're outside blowing guns in the air. But anyway, I enjoy seeing some of you people that I've known for years, but I'd like to run into you at Costco instead of in here. And I just don't know how in the world somebody could have taken the order in San Bernardino and reinstated this. This was all settled that he was gone, and I was looking forward to maybe, I don't know whether you can even use the building. If it's full of mold, you'd have to have a contractor tell you how much it's going to cost to get it all out of there. Anyway, I know you're doing the best you can, but I'm going to start praying for you that you get it done a lot quicker than is happening, because I don't think my tenant that was in there in the last 18 months was very happy with his next door neighbor, and that's the one that abuts that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jamie Knudsen.
My name is Jamie Knudsen, and I'm a property owner there in one of the townhomes that sits behind Teasers. and I'm here in support of the license revocation. Sorry, I'm nervous. I've lived there since 2005, and I've been one of those callers to the sheriffs for these shootings that occur. I've had to, call my daughter, get away from the windows. I've heard, just multiple gunshots. It's very scary. So I'm concerned for our safety. We've seen people out there fighting. We've heard them. The people out there having sex on St. Andrews. It's awful. And then to be here and hear that the sheriffs are concerned for their safety, I'm like, how do I feel going home now. So I'm just here to support it and say that I have heard just multiple gunshots. It's constant, on the weekends anymore. And I think we just had another shooting. It's scary. I don't know if I have anything else to add or if you guys have questions, but.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Having heard the city's case and having heard public comment, might be appropriate if the commission would like to entertain remarks and presentation from Mrs. Schauer, or Ms. Schauer, I'm sorry, whichever it is.
Hello again. And I did want to present this, I forgot the first time. This is the mold remediation report. So it was finished, the whole mold issue, because they were stopped because they didn't have the permit, and then they went and, I guess, got it finished. But it is done. The mold has been removed. There are numerous issues that have been brought up today that have been addressed. A lot of these things are, as you probably know, very expensive. And, funding comes slowly, especially when the business isn't doing well and it's suffering. So a lot of those issues have been trying to be addressed. Like the parking lot cleanup is a constant daily thing. We drove through there today, and there's 2 homeless people there that we watched come out of the liquor store next door with a brown paper bag and go around the back and, plant themselves there in the back to, do whatever they do, drink and stuff. So it is a very difficult, ongoing issue that, I do know that they have been, trying at least to address stuff. It's just, sometimes things are just so overwhelming you can't keep up, and you try. So, but anyway, I just wanted to read this list. That's all I was supposed to do, to address a few of the issues and the concerns. And there was an issue that George Thanos' name was not on the business license, and it could not be done earlier because the license had apparently been revoked earlier, at an earlier time. Okay, I'm just going to read this as he wrote this. The city attorney law firm cannot advise Planning Commission because it has a conflict of interest by representing the city in a current lawsuit filed by Shadowview, which is on appeal. The property is not a nuisance. The property owners are trying to do the work and have completed much, but the city will not issue the permits. The trash and debris are caused by neighboring liquor store, which sells liquor to transients and homeless people. Teasers was not involved with shootings, which was the sheriff's department, happened miles from the bar and did not let them in the bar. The shell casings were not found on Teaser's property, but in the Goodies parking lot behind on that street next door. The old incidents are covered by a prior case, which is res judicata.
Res judicata.
Yeah, that, what you said. Let's see.
It's a big Latin word that we charge more for.
Yeah. Okay, the parties need time to present evidence of racial discrimination by the city and sheriff's department, as teasers did cater to blacks and Latino clientele, which is not the same as the Johnny Fingers clientele. Care is expensive. Its lawyers mishandled prior care, which is on appeal. Let the prior appeal be resolved. The city's opening brief is due May 6, 2014. City should wait for appeal to be decided. If voted to revoke, we ask that you stay your decision until city council meeting.
That completes your assignment from Mr. Diamond?
Yes.
You said you had some other questions. Did you want to ask any of the witnesses any further questions, ma'am?
No, I just read that and show you this, that this is done and that there is stuff done.
Quickly, that document you hold in your hand, you say is a mold report?
Yes.
And when did you receive it?
Oh, I just got it today.
Okay.
So,
And it has not yet been submitted to the city?
as I don't know.
Okay.
Is it? Yes? Yes, yes. Yes, it has. And, you know, like they said, the plans have been submitted for some of the work that needs to be done. A lot of the work, you know, maybe, I don't know, some stuff needs a permit, some stuff doesn't, painting or, you know, landscaping. We have tried. We put in brand new plants in 2005. We put in irrigation. We repaired the irrigation. We put in new sprinklers head. We did all this work. And, you know, within a couple of months, it was destroyed by, you know, the homeless people and the transients that would come through, and, you know, they're sleeping in the bushes and other things, you know, and we really did try to keep it up. We, you know, we maintained the water, the landscaping for, you know, and after a while you just, you know, the plants are dead and you just keep replacing them. So, but there has been an effort. It wasn't just like, oh, you know, no effort, or, you know, just blatantly ignoring it. You know, there has been effort, and there has been a lot of money spent on a lot of things. But it's like, you know, the money pit, you patch one hole and another one breaks open loose, and so you try to scramble to get that one fixed, and then this happens, and then, you know, you're so busy doing this, and then you don't see the other things happening. And so you're running around basically like a chicken with your head cut off, trying to patch all these holes and, you know, fix all these things. And, you know, it's not like it's being totally ignored and blown off. You know, things have been done, you know, little things here and there, you know, and, you know, I don't know. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Is there any further testimony?
No, ma'am.
Any further testimony from the audience? Mr. Schauer? Could I make a remark to you? But your interest is in Cocky Bull, and it's not Cocky Bull. Cocky Bull would require that you go through all the procedures to get a brand new business license and all of the other requirements of the city. So Cocky Bull is not the issue.
I understand. See, all I'm trying to do is create about. Do I get just a couple of minutes to talk, and then if you guys want to, you say what you're going to say. When the Cocky Bull was torn down, it was like getting my heart ripped out of my body. We put our hearts and our souls and everything that we ever were for the last 35 years, and we made that place work, and there was never any problems at it. Well, it was taken away. Really, another story. And we couldn't believe that happened to us. And George has been gracious enough, because he knows there's problems over there. He knows things need to be fixed. He knows everything that you're saying here. The sheriffs, now I love them guys. It's Cocky Bull doorway. It says Cocky Bull welcomes Victorville, or the county sheriffs. We have their Christmas party at the Cocky Bull one year. My dad was a West Covina cop for 10 years. I know how to do a place. We've been here a long time. I've done a few places, but I guarantee you, you look in the records, you never got a call to anywhere that I was in charge of. We can't stop living. She's got a beautiful piece of property. No, it shouldn't be like that. I feel for her. All she wants to do is make a living like anybody else does. But we can't, how do you go back and fix something? You can't, because if something doesn't happen on that corner, how long is it going to be empty with a chain link fence around it for a while? It's going to be an eyesore. We're talking about something that we have an investor in place. The people are, everything is ready to go, and it can happen overnight instead of a year from now or 2 years from now. We want to make it better, beautiful, a place where you can take your wife and have a candlelight dinner and listen to some classic country. And on the other side, a little bit more if you want a line dance. Our mailing list has 6,000 people on it. Since that article wrote in the paper, I cannot believe 3 generations of people are begging me to do something. But what do we tell them? That it was a bad corner and now it's never going to be anything else?
Mr. Schauer, it's a different issue, and we're not
How can it be a different issue if I'm part of Shadowview and I want to make my club into something more beautiful, nice? Exactly what you're asking for.
Well, you even stated yourself that you haven't been part of it since 2000.
Okay, but if I have a kid and I'm not a part of his life, does that make me not his father?
Can you wait till she's finished and she'll wait till you're finished? Because it's hard to tell what everybody's saying.
Even in your testimony, you indicated that you were not a part of it after 1 month. Now, this has nothing to do with you at this point. If you want to start a new cocky bill, you go through all the procedures that the city have for you opening it. But right now, this is a different issue. This is on teasers.
Well, we're talking about a fix right now.
You're talking about the possibility of the same location, and we're not going to be talking about that for Cocky Bull.
So then if we were trying to sell the property, we have to tell the people that are going in there, don't try to put a restaurant or
You can't go in there unless you have approval from the city.
That's all she's saying.
And you would need a brand-new conditional use permit.
What she's saying,
want to be
what she's saying is if you bring a new use in there, which would be probably great, you would have to have a new business permit and a new CUP. Has nothing to do. You could not operate under the business license and the CUP that is before this body. You would have to obtain a new one. So what we're saying is it doesn't really affect anything. If you wanted to put in a restaurant there, that would be a whole different licensing issue.
Well, it's the same thing, really, because it's a restaurant. It's for well, it's not right now.
Yeah, it's not the same business. It's not run the same way. You'd have to get a new. And we hope that you proceed with that. Because maybe it will be a big improvement, but
that's kind of why
it's not this proceeding. Nothing here prevents you from going forward and trying to do a new business.
Well, that's what I want to do, but basically, I know I go way off the board here. I just wanted a couple minutes to tell you that.
What I'm saying is that you would have to go through the complete procedures all over again under a new name. It's a new business. It has nothing to do with teasers. Sorry. But we thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
If you have something new to add about teasers, I'd like to hear that, but not about Cocky Bull.
The issues before this body are the nuisance issues which have alleged to have been present during the past, which apparently you had nothing to do with if you were not managing, and the code enforcement issues that continue to be in the building. Those are limited.
But with the right paperwork, that you see that this is what we are going to do. I mean, it's drawn up by an attorney or whoever, and this. I mean, we can't open. We can't do a thing unless it's what we say it's going to be. Because you just say, we spent a year trying to get the Country Palace open.
You can't do anything until you go through the procedure starting from scratch, from absolute number one scratch.
I don't see a reason, an ability to bootstrap into that existing facility a whole new business without changing licensing. I just don't think that's consistent with the municipal code.
Yeah. See, instead of trying to fight to keep teasers open, we're fighting to make it what you want.
Well,
that's why we're not trying, but money, you know, man, it's economy to go on and on and on and back and forth. I mean, when this can, I'm talking new kitchen equipment, just beyond beautiful. And it can happen right now instead of a year or a year and a half.
And let me, Mr. Showers,
and
say only one thing. Go make it happen. But there's nothing we're doing here that's going to prevent you from doing that. And we can't help you. This body cannot help you move forward. We are have one issue before us, which is the past conduct of the other business. And so that's what we have. I applaud your enthusiasm. I think that, you know, if you can get your proposed business off the ground, it'll probably be a great thing for the city, but it's not before this council, this commission right now.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time again.
Is there anyone else who wishes to speak to the subject matter? Public hearing?
Yes.
Then I am going to declare this public hearing closed.
The effect of that, in case anybody's wondering, is that the Planning Commission will no longer receive testimony from anyone at this point because the public hearing has been closed. So what's left now is that the Planning Commission will consider, they may just decide to do it right now, they may, that's up to them, but they will consider if the evidence that they have heard ties in with the, specifically ties in with the findings they have to make. And if they feel that way, then they will proceed. If they don't, then they'll have some other conclusion.
Just a few comments I would like to make. There's a lot of people who are affected. We've had somebody who lives close to the establishment. We have somebody who owns businesses close to the establishment who are being affected by this. The resources that the sheriff deputies are being depleted in large part because of this business. The statistic or the evidence, I should say, that was most surprising to me was the contrast between the number of calls to teasers in comparison to the other similar establishments. I can't remember the exact wording that was used, but I think it was a 48 liquor license that 8 establishments had, and 7 of those 8 had 386 calls in a 5-year period of time in comparison to 1 establishment, which is Teasers, that had 900. To me, that's evidence enough to heavily consider revoking this CUP. I hope, like we all hope, that in some capacity it reopens as something better. But that's, like it's been said, not what's before us today. What's before us is whether or not it's a problem for the city. And there's no doubt in my mind that it is a problem for the city, has been a problem for the city. The new newspaper articles we have in front of us are from 2001 all the way until 2013. I mean, this is not something that has happened for, a few years, and, this has been going on for over a decade. And I think we need to do something about it.
Commissioner Huber?
Basically, have the same comments. I hate to see Denny's and Richie have problems on the weekends and have to close their restaurants. It's just time we do something about this. So many calls from 2008 to 2013. It's just unbearable. We can't live with that, in my mind.
Commissioner Kurth?
I'm prepared to make a motion if the commission's ready.
I believe that we're ready.
Okay. Mr. and Mrs. Shower, you seem like decent people. I don't know you. I like your passion. I respect and honor your vision that you're talking about for a new venture. Maybe that location, maybe somewhere else. I don't know. I like that. I bet you guys got a lot of experience, and it sounds good. But unfortunately, like we were talking about here just a little bit when you were at the stand, we're talking about what has happened in the past. I've read all these documents. There's a lot of documents. There's a lot of history and a lot of details, and it goes on since 2001. And I know you guys have been involved in some sense, maybe not on a day-to-day, but you got to know what's going on there, and you got to know what we're looking at. In our staff report, there's a resolution that has given us the option to, rescind your business license and alcohol permit. And within that resolution, there are lots of findings, numerous findings that outline the facts from what the city staff and a lot of the experts here have testified towards us, for us. I don't think any of these guys here tonight are lying. I think they're just doing their job. I tend to believe them, and with that, I take a look at all these findings that are in this staff report and this resolution, and I believe that they are consistent, and I believe they are true and correct findings. So with that, I'm going to make a motion to adopt Resolution P-14-012, approving case number PLN 14-00001, which is rescinding Resolution P-05-339, thereby revoking the conditional use permit, CUP 92-049M, for the on-site sale of alcoholic beverages, beer, wine, and liquor within 300 feet of a residence, and revoking business license BSL 05-07398 for Shadowview Corporation, DBA Teasers Sports Bar and Grill, located at 14269 7th Street, City of Victorville, based upon the findings and evidence in the resolution P-14-012. And I'm going to find that the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act based on the act not applying to projects which are denied.
I'll second the motion.
Do we also have to make the findings?
He did.
He did that?
Yeah, if you adopt the resolution which he has cited, the
Right.
findings are included therein. As I indicated earlier, it's important that the commission understand that they are saying they found the evidence directly supports those findings, and that you are comfortable with that.
Absolutely.
That resolution has been adopted, rescinding the conditional use permit and the business license of Teasers. This action on the behalf of the Planning Commission can be appealed to the City Council within 10 days of this action. Can you make that finding for that?
I have one additional comment to make, both because Mrs. Schauer, in her reading of the statement from Mr. Diamond, and because Mr. Diamond in my call with him yesterday asked this question. And the question was whether or not Teasers could remain open until it had completed the appeal process to the City Council. And the answer is that since that is routinely what this commission allows, we're going to allow it in this instance also. If appealed. You have 10 days to appeal. If it's not appealed, then at the end of that time, the right to operate will terminate.
Agenda item number 2 is public comments on planning matters. In compliance with the Brown Act, it is necessary for the Planning Commission to make available time for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on items of interest that fall within the Planning Commission's subject matter jurisdiction. If you wish to speak, please limit the length of your comments to 3 minutes. Does anyone wish to speak? And our last item is presentation of reports by commission members.
Nothing.
And I have,
Commissioner Wilson is.
I'm sorry. Oh.
Oh, and I'm still in this chair.
Yeah, that's all right. Do you? Nothing. Okay. And I have nothing. Therefore, I will adjourn this meeting.